Hey, Mike, happy Thursday.
It is Happy Thursday.
I must said happy Friday with the way the week is going. I feel like it should be Friday.
I know. Yeah, no, it should be about Saturday afternoon by now
Well, then why am I talking to you?
because you love doing this.
Oh, no, I mean, but on the Saturday afternoon, I don't know that I love you that
No,
much, man.
no, nor do I. So,
So it's funny, so I'm clearly in the office.
mm.
There are no fluorescent lights in my house. And I gotta tell you, like downtown Seattle is still like going to like a post-apocalyptic zone. Like there's
uh,
nobody down here.
well, and on top of that, we are entering the dark season.
The dark season,
The dark
yeah.
season.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who don't live in the Pacific Northwest, we have two seasons. We have the light season and we have the dark season.
The dark, yeah. Well, when we change the clocks, we'll go back to being light in the morning for a little while, but the shortening of the day accelerates, and then we'll start our ritual of going to work in the dark and coming home in the dark. That's if you're going to an office.
That's if you're going to an office.
Yeah, you
And
got to put that
otherwise, you
caveat
can just.
there.
You know what? I feel like I've had enough time in my basement. I'm going to come to the office more.
Mm,
Hey, speaking of offices and corporations, you've had a busy media week. You
yeah.
were in the Wall Street Journal talking about corporations hacking back.
Hmm.
I don't think you think that's a good idea.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Oh, why not?
I understand why it's happening. Okay,
Hmm.
everybody is really tired of, having to pay out huge sums of money for extortionists, and then all the money it takes to recover, and the fact that it doesn't seem that there's up to now there hasn't been any help at making this thing stop. It's been on every individual corporation to get it to stop. Well, now one of the tactics they want to employ is somebody's hassling me, I'm going to hassle them back. And, this is not a good idea because of the way it can escalate. And I don't think it's going to stop, until there's a prohibition on this. I'm sure there are companies, in fact, this is part of the reporting, there are companies springing up that you can contract to hack your adversaries, right? So,
Great.
you
That
know,
seems just wonderful.
hack your adversaries, hack your competitors, hack your detractors. Where does this go? And, I can think of quite a few ways that this can go wrong, including,
You can think of a few ways. Yeah.
oh yeah, I mean, I've said before that the system that's used to launch the most attacks is my Aunt Barbara's computer in Clinton, Oklahoma. Right. So, compromised systems are used to launch attacks. Well, you're going to attack somebody's home router,
Hmm.
you know? So I can also think of the false flaggery that's going on where, a country will do something and put the fingerprints of another country on it.
Mhm.
And so you react to that, and all of a sudden we incite, international aggression. This has all kinds of potential for going very
I
wrong.
got to give you credit for coming up with false flaggery. That's
Oh,
pretty good there.
come on. That's a time honored term. The
You
more
did,
interesting thing I did
yeah.
this week, though, was a panel with some folks from DHS because,
Mhm.
as you know, it's Cyber Awareness Month, and
Oh,
DHS
every
does a.
time you say that, we ring the bell. Woo! No, I don't
That's the
know why.
last time you'll ring the bell, then.
I know there's a bell in the office, so I rang it for Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Keep going.
Okay, all right. So DHS does a webinar on a topic every week during the month of October, and week 3 is workforce development, which is something I am pretty heavily engaged in with the Pisces project. So we paneled up and talked about how to get into a role in technology security.
Technology security? Do you mean cybersecurity? Okay, it's time to go through the weekend news. Should I ring the bell? What happened this week, Mike?
Well, let's see. For starters, and this is in your swim lane, we have another media business that's been pummeled. Apparently with ransomware, and I say apparently because up until yesterday, I wasn't sure that this wasn't just straight up activism, given Sinclair's reputation that we won't discuss. And now it's being reported that this is Evil Corp, which has been off the radar for quite a while. And This is after, what was the other one that was hit? Cox Communications,
Cox Media Group,
Cox Media, and Marketron, right? That ad market, I guess.
They provide ads to radio stations. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were compromised over the last few weeks. And this may be the sign of the gangs moving into a new market, right?
I mean, I know folks, reasonably high up at Sinclair, and there was not great communication within the company, just that nothing was working. I do know, some of the TV stations have recovered, some haven't. What are you hearing about recovery there?
Well, to my knowledge, they're still in the thick of this, and it's interesting that you bring up recovery, because the recovery phase was reported this week to be the most expensive part of being attacked with ransomware. So what they talked about was the average total cost of recovery and downtime, which is an average of 23 days now, doubled over the past year. It used to be about $750,000. Now it's about 1.8 million. And I'm sure Sinclair has the adding machine going right now. And for all of the victims in 2020, the number is 21 billion in downtime.
Yeah, and I mean, for TV stations, especially newsrooms, there's added costs too, which folks don't think about. So, there's lost ad revenue. There's but there's also the overtime costs, right? Like, you need people to work overtime, and overtime's expensive, especially in unionized markets. It can get expensive. And so, I think the costs that you stated are going to be low for what this ends up costing Sinclair. And from what I'm hearing, it costed Cox Media Group. When you put all the things it cost. And by the way, you said an adding machine.
Okay, a calculator app.
Trying to convince my daughter that she needs to learn math when she's like, my whole life I'll have a calculator in my pocket is a hard thing to do. So you keep going with your adding machine.
Your calculator won't do calculus.
You know what? The good news is neither can I. So there was good news in ransomware this week, though.
Good news in ransomware this week. Woo! I love that. Woo! Yeah.
We'll ring the bell for that one. Our Evil shut down again after their Tor sites were hijacked, right? Who do you suppose could have done such a thing with such, I mean, who do you think, Mike?
Well, so there are possibilities. It was another gang. It was someone in Our Evil that was disgruntled, or my favorite, door number 3, the FBI and or the U.S. military. Now, the Department of Justice, the FBI, focuses on prosecution, but has occasionally been known to engage in these kind of takedowns. But I think our military is getting more into the game here, and we're going to see more of these disappearances. Good.
Yeah, I mean, the Biden administration is really going after the gangs. I mean, didn't I see a few articles in the blast that there's strategy all of a sudden from the government?
Yeah, they're calling it an all of government strategy. So Treasury is in, Department of Justice is in, very likely the NSA is in, but we're never going to know that. The State Department's got a role to play. So every agency has authority for a little piece of how we're going to go after these terrorists, which is good, because if we do not respond adequately, this is going to ramp up and get further out of control. Did you see there was a couple articles this week on what's being called Killware? You see this?
Killware? No, Killware. I did not see that. That doesn't sound good. What is Killware?
So the reporting even had a quote from so a little bit of this is absurd, right? There's a quote from the Secretary of Homeland Security about this: malware that is designed to destroy networks, not snarl them up for the purpose of, encryption and extortion. But they used the example of the Oldsmar water utility, where someone was able to increase the amount of sodium hydroxide, remember, being injected in the water?
Yeah.
Now,
Oldsmar,
in my
Florida,
opinion, right before the Super Bowl. And that was not a nation state. That was not a criminal. That was an opportunist. Someone that came across an open TeamViewer exposure and either knew or guessed a password, snooped around, moved some sliders, and then immediately disconnected. Okay, that's not Killware. That was a dork that didn't know what he or she was accessing, got scared, and ran off. Okay, so a horrible example to use, but yes, there are actors out there that are motivated to do this, and their number is increasing
Yeah, and since you
for
brought
sure.
up, yeah, yeah, and by the way, since you brought up water there, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out Bjorn Townsend, who's one of our consultants, and great writer, did a
Hmm.
nice paper on observations in the water sector, and was quoted in Politico and a couple other places this week.
Yeah, Bjorn is a really good writer, and he's really a great security consultant too. We're lucky to have him. Yes, there were a few articles this week on the water sector because CISA put out another warning and talked about 3 water utilities that had been attacked. And it's amazing to me that we're just now getting around to securing the sector that has the most bearing on our lives. We spent a lot of time and money protecting credit cards, but somehow the water sector has not been addressed. That's changing, but it's also very backward because I can live without a credit card. I cannot live without water.
I don't know if you ask my kid, you might be able to live without water, but you can't live without Wi-Fi.
Mm.
Hey, what was the article on online voting this week? Cyber practitioners say that overseas military and disabled voters shouldn't be using any online system now.
Yeah. So I read that and I refuse to put it in the blast because I strongly disagree here. It's something called UOCAVA voting, and that's for overseas deployed military, disabled, Americans living abroad, the academic community, and we're talking about academics in computer science and not in security, sees the world as a series of zeros and ones. And they're claiming that there could be malware on the voters' computers that may change votes. Okay. Security people know that it's not zeros and ones. All right. It's a big fuzzball of risk. And the scenarios they describe are so unlikely that it's like saying, don't drive because a meteorite might hit your car. Right? What they're talking about is not online voting, it's electronic ballot submission, and it's a lot closer to DocuSign than anything else. And given what we are seeing with election workers being threatened with violence by people that don't like the outcome of elections, natural disasters that are increasing in frequency and severity, we need fallback methods. That's all I want to say about this now. This particular subject drives me crazy, and I think I'm going to have to respond to the academics.
Ooh, that'll be fun. Looks like I hit a nerve there. Maybe I should only talk to you about articles that you put in the blast.
Mm.
All right, new subject. We found out, not generally, in so many media locations yet, that
Mm-hmm.
there's a credential stuffing attack going on against financial institutions. And bad people are logging into bank accounts and transferring money to other accounts that they then drain through ATM transactions.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because apparently there are a lot of smaller financial institutions that don't use multi-factor authentication for their customers, or they will use something like a password plus a secret, which is not multi-factor authentication, and they're being pummeled. If your bank or your credit union lets you log in to your bank account and is not forcing the use of some kind of multi-factor authentication using an authenticator app, ideally, not a text message with a code, see if you can get them to change that. And if they don't, you might consider changing to an institution that does. And by the way, we're also seeing what are known as bin attacks, where if you have the first few numbers of a credit card, you can use software to fill in the rest because there's a checksum algorithm that has to be satisfied, and so you can figure that out. And there's other attacks that just guess card numbers because banks have issued them with sequential numbers stupidly.
I'd say,
Mm-hmm.
does that mean you should go with like a major multinational bank? But I mean,
No. I
no.
mean, bigger banks have better security for your money, but they are not better. That's all I'll
Well,
say. I'm not going to
well,
throw Wells Fargo under the bus, but Wells Fargo.
All right. We're about out of time here. So the
Mhm.
kicker is the thing in the end where you make us all smile, Mike. Make us all smile. What do you
Okay, but
got?
wait a minute. We're doing a thing later today, and if you have a link for it, you should
Oh
throw it in the
yeah, yeah,
chat.
yeah, yeah. We have a seminar or seminar
So,
panel,
on
whatever it is,
on
on how to budget.
budgeting, yeah, yeah.
Let
So
me
this will be
grab that.
interesting. And I got to say, my co-panelist will be Mike Sloan, who's IT director from the city of Spokane, who is what's the best way to say this? My favorite heckler. So I think Mike and I together between two mics, this is going to be fun.
There are a lot of mics in my life, Mike.
Yeah. Okay. So kicker. The kicker this week has to be the Missouri governor. All right. So it seems that someone clued in a newspaper that a state web application for teachers was exposing their social security numbers in the source of the page, of the web page, okay?
Mhm.
Which you can see by hitting F12 when you're on the page, okay? Now, this was kept quiet until it was fixed, and then it was reported and published, but the governor is going after the journalist as a hacker because of that F12 key, okay?
It's a when I talk to our pen test team about how they get into how they do their job, they say generally they hit F12.
Okay, all right. I mean, the derision that is being leveled at the Missouri governor by the InfoSec community is pretty funny, right? I mean, it's like stuff on Twitter, and you know, they're making some pretty good jokes. But again, this is what happens when you elect dinosaurs with a background in law rather than science or technology. Okay, so you be you, Missouri.
Hey, stay away from that F12 key. It can get you in hot water, Mike.
Boy, you can go to prison for using that F12. You should
Don't
remove that
use
from your keyboard.
F12. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to outlaw the F12 key. From now on, it only goes to 11.
When F12 keys are outlawed, only outlaws will have F12 keys.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. You missed my Spinal Tap joke. But anyway, you
Okay.
must be a drummer. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.